Ladies and gentlemen, Keith Schilling here, and I'm back with another MMATakeover.com special edition. Today's guest is one of the true pioneers of the sport. As an amateur wrestler, he was an alternate in the 1980, 1984, and 1988 Olympics. He was the UFC 5 tournament champion, the UFC Ultimate 95 tournament champion, and a UFC Super Fight champion is in the UFC Hall of Fame. He has fought in the UFC, Pride, WEC rings, and several other organizations. He composed a MMA record of 101 wins, 19 losses, and 7 draws. Yep, you heard that right. 101 wins. He also competed in professional wrestling, where he performed for several organizations, including the WWF. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and the only Dan the Beast Severn. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic there, Keith. You forgot an all-around great guy on top of it all.
All great. We let people judge that when they hear their interview. They'll know that you were a great guy. So let me tell you something. I've been a fan of MMA for an extremely long time. I started. I was 13 years old. I'm 35 now. And the first UFC I ever saw was UFC 6, which you were in the main event against Ken Shamrock. And so I can say that you were definitely one of the people that turned me into a fan. So let me ask you a question. How did you get into mixed martial arts?
Well, I'll tell you what, that's something that I actually grew up aspiring to be because it just started. It started in 19 actually officially it started December 1993, and I've been involved with it since 1994. I'll just simply say that a friend of mine simply, he had watched like the first two. He recorded them on an old VHS tape, and he showed it to me and said, "You ought to think about doing this." And I'm seeing people being sucker kicked in the face, and teeth are flying out. And I said that these are not exactly skills I possess. But when he said, "Well, look at this little skinny little guy doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu," of course he was referring to Royce Gracie, and I thought,
Yeah.
well, looks kind of like grappling here to me. I go, I guess a man's got to be within arm's reach to punch, legs reach to kick. I can either step back and get out of range, or I close the distance before they get any kind of mustard on any of those shots. And I will welcome them to the world of amateur wrestling, aka grappling. And I tell you, that little tidbit, Kurt, Keith, served me oh so well over all these decades.
Wow. So you were one of the first people to have a nickname. Your nickname, the Beast. One of the things they actually named a UFC after you. They called it the Return of the Beast at UFC 5. How did you get the nickname, the Beast?
Well, actually, one of the play-by-play commentators was the legendary football player, I should say, and Hall of Famer football player, Jim Brown.
Yeah.
So he was, they wanted, they wanted the image of a tough guy being one of their commentators, and he definitely fit the bill. And when he first met me, he really didn't think that much of me. I mean, literally, in his own words, he said, "Well, Dan, I really didn't think that much of you." He said, "You showed up wearing a sports jacket and a tie, and you're wearing your glasses." He says, "I thought you're someone's agent instead of a
Okay.
national competitor." And he said, "You're rather soft-spoken." He goes, He says, "I was so surprised when I saw you climb into the cage. It was like watching, Clark Kent transpose into Superman. Take off his glasses, you put down
Yeah.
his cape, and ta-da, right there you go." And he even says, "How do you do it? How do you turn on like that?" And I'm thinking, Jim Brown is asking me a question like this. I got wow. I go because I was in high school and I was watching him play football, and he was, in my opinion, the most punishing running back in the history of the game. He didn't run around people; he ran over people.
Yeah.
And he retired at such a young age. It still took a couple men an additional decade of playing time just to beat his record. But had he played a couple more years, and he had the ability to do so, he would have. No one would have ever touched his record. But to have been given the ring name of somebody of that caliber, what a sensation! Could we have a better endorsement?
Yeah, I mean, Brown is definitely arguably the greatest running back of all time. In my opinion, he is the greatest running back when you look into his career. So
Yep.
in my introduction, I talked all these accolades that you did. You fought the best of the best. Is there one fight win that you have that you're most proud of, or one accomplishment that you would say was the highlight of your career?
Actually, no, because I mean, when you think about it, well, the reality is, I never looked at it as a fight because Keith, you might find this hard to believe. I personally feel like I have never been in a fight in my entire life.
Okay.
but I have been a competitor. Because when you look at, you know, mixed martial arts and the predecessor to mixed martial arts, the NHB no holds barred era, but then you look at boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, karate, kung fu, all these different forms of fighting, and the reality is they all are regulated by rules.
Yeah.
The closest that the UFC, again, the first uh, the first company ever doing this cage fighting, and I refer to it as cage fighting because it has had a two-part series.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, most people only know it as mixed martial arts today. The term mixed martial arts really didn't come about until probably around, I'll say, 2004, 2005 time period. Prior to that, it was all known as NHB, no holds barred.
Yeah.
The biggest difference for your listeners is today's product has approximately, it's either 47 or 49 rules. The athletes wear gloves, there's weight classes, there's time periods, and they fight one opponent in a given evening. Where back in that no holds barred era, the athletes only abided by two rules. Those being, do not bite your opponent. Rule number two, no sticking fingers in their eye sockets, no eye gouging.
Yeah.
End of the rules. I mean, end of the rules. Anything else imagination can come up with, you were good to go. No weight classes.
Yeah.
No
That's right.
time periods. Bare knuckles, and they had the 8-man tournament. So, an entirely, totally different product. It was closest to being a real fight back in the no holds barred era than it is today.
Yeah.
So once again, I say it's a physical entertainment product. Really, is what it is. But your original question was, how did I or why did I want to get involved with this? When I first saw it, I looked upon it as a test.
Okay.
A test of my abilities. Can I get to my opponent before he gets to me? Because then I know it's going to be a chess match, and is he going to be able to kick me, punch me, elbow me before I'm able to get that clinch? Because I simply know that if I clinch my opponent, I will welcome them to the world of amateur wrestling, and they will never ever see the light of day again unless I decide to cut them loose. That's how tenacious I was, and that's where I think Jim Brown, came up with that because he saw how the veracity that I would turn on. But I simply knew where I had to finish the fights.
Yeah.
I was not going to stand out there and throw punches and kicks because I'm going to come out on the short end of the stick. So
The one thing I always think of Dan Severn is your fight against Anthony Macias, the very first fight, and you suplex him twice in about the first 10 seconds of the fight, and right away that nickname, the Beast, was definitely cinched in. Like, holy crap, who is this guy? He just suplexed the guy twice.
The ironic part was, that was my very first match ever, and no one had ever seen, this belly to back suplex is what it's called, and Greco-Roman and or freestyle wrestling. Those are your two international Olympic forms of competition. Here in the United States, what we do in our high schools, our junior high, and then our collegiate level is known as folk style.
Yep.
We are the only country that does folk style. The rest of the world does either freestyle or Greco. So when it comes out to World Championships, Olympic Games, we tend to be on the back burners because by the time you graduate out of college, you're 21, 22 years of age, and now your really only opportunity to compete on an international basis is Greco or freestyle. So our guys and gals both are behind the 8 ball, whereas other countries have been doing it since that 4 or 5 years of age.
Yeah.
But on that first match, I got somebody that's throwing elbows at me, and I got behind him. I'm thinking, and it was Anthony Macias. His name was Anthony Mad Dog Macias, and he's throwing these elbows. I'm eating elbow after elbow. I'm thinking, son of a gun, this guy's taking me out. So I belly back suplexed him the first time, and he hit hard.
Yeah.
As we came right back up, again, he speed right back up into it. Again, I'm thinking, oh my God! And he hit me with another elbow shot, and it really pissed me off. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, you think that first one hurt? Wait until you feel this one.
Yeah.
He hit so hard that I folded his whole body up. His own knee came up and struck his own head.
Wow.
And split his own eyebrow open, because all I know is as we turn down, and he's on all fours and he's shaking his head and he's looking down. I'm seeing blood dripping, but I'm thinking, is it his or is it mine? Because I don't know, because I've been eating so many elbows.
Yeah.
And what a lot of your listeners will never understand is in an actual fight or competition, you don't know if you're really injured or not, unless it's one of those types of strikes
Yeah.
that puts you right down, like a knockout or something like this. It'll
Sure.
put you right down and you can't. Otherwise, your adrenaline is kicking up so much that you're doing almost the impossible or the invincible.
So we have a lot of new fans that listen to the show. Some of them might not be familiar with you. I just want to give you a quick, just a who's list of guys you've actually fought. You fought all the legends of the sport. Hoist Gracie, you fought Oleg Taktarov multiple times. You fought Ken Shamrock multiple times. Paul Varlins, Tank Abbott, Mark Coleman, Jeremy Horn, Chemo, Pat Miletich, Josh Barnett, Pedro Hizzo, Forrest Griffin, and I could keep going. You have fought everybody. Is there one guy, now you have over 120 fights in your career. Is there one guy that you never got to fight that you wish you could have?
No, I actually never had any bone to pick. The only person that when I first saw Tank Abbott, for example, I first saw Tank Abbott compete. I saw him knock out this 400-pound sumo with one punch.
Yep.
But what really turned me against Tank was, as his sumo laid there, and his body is actually it's stiffly laid on up to where you go to what I kind of call funky chicken flop right there, where your body's involuntary stiff down up, his hands all down the side, and then Tank had the audacity to strike this ball. The guy tore. The referee would have stepped in and would have stopped the match.
Yeah.
But Tank struck this guy, and that's when I lost all respect for like a Tank Abbott.
Sure.
And when I watched that match, I thought to myself, if one day I ever step into the cage with a Tank Abbott, evil will have begotten a greater evil. There's people can't believe how nice I am, and like, oh, dude, you're not at all what I think you'd be like. What I thought you'd be like, but then you climb in this cage. I go, well, I know how to turn it on. I go, and even Jim Brown asked me that on that. I go, you can't be that way at all times, because if you're that way at all times, you're going to probably be in jail or prison. So I said, I've always been able to do that. In high school, for example, I loved football more than I loved wrestling.
Really?
I was like a one-man wrecking team on the football squad, but the thing is, we lost games.
Okay.
Because I did everything that I possibly could do, but then somebody else misses a block, somebody else misses a tackle, and here I know I gave the game 100%, and then we lose. So as I started pursuing my wrestling career, the definition of wrestling is a team sport based on individual performances.
Yep.
The team can lose, and I can still win. I like that.
Now, what position did you play in football?
I played them all. Literally, I was that versatile that I never left the field. I was offense. I was defense. I was kickoff. I was punt return. You named it, I mean, it was like kickoff, punt return. That's referred to as the suicide squad, where you just mad dash down the field, and all you want to do is hit and lay people out. I mean, I had. In one game, I ended up breaking my shoulder pads, so I actually had to piece together a set of shoulder pads. Another game, I actually broke my helmet. I had to get another helmet.
Oh. Yeah, I'm glad I never had to play against you.
No, I mean, I loved football. I mean, literally, I had almost as many scholarships to go on and play college football as I did amateur wrestling.
Uh-huh.
And I turned it down because of what I just told you. I'd rather have that mano-a-mano.
Yep.
And I ended up going to Arizona State.
Yep.
And the head coach at the time his name was, oh gosh, I can't believe I just...
Uh-oh, you're getting in trouble now.
No. He was known as the Punishing Polak. Gosh, what you're drawing a blank at them? Coach, wow. I've got a picture in my mind, whole 9 yards, but nevertheless, he was he was always like, he'd see me all the time. He's like, Severn, you're an animal. He says, I see you as a linebacker. I go, Coach, and I would be the most devastating linebacker you would ever see. I said, I would take care of, I would plug holes, I would take people out. I mean, and I go, but I can't count on the other 10 players. I can't. So, and he just couldn't believe that. But, you used to come and watch the home wrestling matches and just like watch it just where I just dismantle people and pin people because I mean in college you just don't see very many pins and I'm the guy that actually is pinning people left and right
Yeah.
and knowing that when it came down to those final couple matches if the team needed 6 points, Severn's walking on that, he's going to get a 6 points somewhere or the other. He's going to get a 6 points. And I mean, I'm going against even my freshman year. I went 34-0,
Wow.
24 pins. I set an
Wow.
NCAA record for how many wins I had and how many pins I had.
Wow.
And I did not even finish up the season. But even in my high school years, in my high school 4 years alone, I ended up setting 8 national records simultaneously, which is a national record in itself. No other human being has ever come close to that. And I did that back in 1976.
And it's never been beaten.
So I tell you this way, 1976 I did that. By 1996, 2 decades later, I'm the number 1 cage fighter in the world.
Yeah. Wow.
But you got to realize
Yeah.
I was already, in my opinion, I was already a decade past my prime. I always tell people, you guys might have been impressed with what I did, what I did in the UFC, but I always tell people from 1984 to 1986, I ruled the world in wrestling. Anything that walked out on the mat with me was in trouble
Yeah.
because I was going to beat it one way or the other. I'm going to break you physically. I'm going to break you mentally, and then I might just break you in the process. Give you an idea because I say that in my junior and senior years, I went 51-0 and 49-0.
Wow.
And I had 43 pins both seasons, which were national records. Okay, and only one person in 2 years I did not pin. Now think about that.
That's insane.
51-0,
That's
49-0,
100.
basically 100 straight matches,
Yeah.
43 pins, 43 pins. How did I win those other matches if I didn't pin them
You
and
had to
only
tech
one
them.
person?
You had to tech them, right?
No, the tech fall did not exist.
Oh, so with
That didn't
injury,
exist until,
it had to be injury
you know,
default, right?
yes, bingo. Yeah, basically injury default. They just, I was doing all legal type of techniques, but I mean, basically they would get injured in the process. Even to the point, I went to a national tournament once, and I always saw the writing on the wall because it was starting to happen. I had people starting to dodge me. They would go to different weight classes, things of that nature. And I went to a national tournament, and I made certain I went in the last 10 minutes and I weighed in so that no one knew I actually stepped in and weighed on the scales.
Yeah.
And there were 7 other guys, and I made the 8th guy, even numbers. And I asked the matchmaker, I just said, "Can you throw me to the top?" I go, "This way I get no buys, I get all matches." And he said, "Sure." And so basically I left for a couple hours because it takes a while to do all the bracketing and things of that nature.
Sure. Yep.
And then I came back to see who my first opponent was going to be, to see am I going to wear a red singlet, am I going to wear a blue singlet. And I went to the wall chart, and all 7 other men withdrew.
Wow.
I won a national title without ever stepping out on the mat.
That's insane. That's one of the craziest things I've ever heard. I would have thought at least one guy
Yeah,
would.
well, that's, yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but I am the realest guy in the room.
I'm sorry. What'd you
That's
say? You are the
that's the
what?
name. I'm the realest guy in the room. That's the name of my book
Yeah.
that came out just this past July. The realest guy in the room, the life and times of Dan B. Severn, which I'll say it's a good first book, but I've got enough material to probably write at least 2, possibly 3 more books because I've been doing things. I've been wrestling, amateur wrestling since 1969 is when I started. I've been teaching it since 71, and I won my first national title in 72, and you were born when?
I was born in 1982.
Yeah, so I just assume that, Keith, it's the fact that I've been competing than most people have been alive,
Yeah.
and the kicker is I'm not done.
Yeah, let's get to that. So, you last fought in 2012. You were scheduled to fight Tank Abbott, who you've already beaten previously. You were scheduled to face him. Obviously, the fight fell apart. You're planning on still competing?
If the right opportunities, I'm not really looking at. I don't really have no axe to grind with any of the young bucks coming on up. Um, I would still entertain a match with, say, a Hoist Gracie. I don't even know if I would ever even entertain another match with the King Shamrock because he backed out. I wasted 5 months of my life in preparation thereof. So that's if I'm going to come out of retirement and do a match, because
Yeah.
when I retired basically as of January 2013, I simply said, I'm retiring now, but if one of these three guys, and right in a row, it was a Mark Coleman, Ken Shamrock, Hoist Gracie, if that could have been my last three matches, I would have been just fine with that. But
Okay.
Mark Coleman's off the list.
Yep.
He's had a couple artificial hip
Surgeries. Yep.
replacements, and he's had some health issues, so he's off the list. But you still have two other viable commodities. You got a Ken, and you got a Hoist. And I've talked to their people, and their people say some pretty eloquent type of things, but their people don't want the matches.
Yeah. So I mean, you're about 58 years old, correct?
Yes.
Now, what's this desire to keep competing? I mean, we've talked it's something about these high level wrestlers. We've interviewed a lot of them. We've interviewed Mark Coleman, who you just mentioned. We've interviewed Jeff Munson, Matt Lindland. They all talk about the desire to compete. They all said they got into MMA not because similar to what you said that they didn't really want to fight anybody. They just wanted to continue to compete at a high level. Is that why you have fought so long?
Well, no. I mean, I'll say the combination. When I first went into this crazy cage fighting thing, I didn't tell a single person what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
The doggone cell phones and all social media kind of ruined that for me because I actually almost had like a secret life. I didn't tell any of my family members the very first time, and
Okay.
only because a couple of my uncles happened to watch it. But you know, I only planned on doing one. Well, the one turned out okay, and I thought, well, maybe I'll do another one. So that went to my first year, to my fifth year, to my 10th year. Then I realized, I'm older than most of my opponents' fathers,
Yeah.
and I'm starting to realize, and I could tell in my own techniques and practice sessions when we're doing some live sessions, stuff like this, I can realize where my mind is saying, move, 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 move. But by the time it got to the wiring to my body's saying, okay, well, that's not a good combination.
Of course not.
And something like that. I've seen the opportunities, but I know my body's responding slower, and I go, I'm an accident waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather leave the competition scene on my own merit as opposed to letting some young buck wreck me into retirement and then I have health issues for the rest of my life. You ask me, why do people want to continue to compete? I mean, Keith, life is competition. We compete for the best spouses. We compete for the best jobs. Life is competition. Anyone says anything differently, they're full of shit.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm very blunt on all this kind of stuff. Life is competition. I want to be around for a long time.
Yeah.
I want to help to inspire young people to take control of their own destiny, whether it's in competition or whether it's just taking accountability of your own actions. That's probably one of the biggest things I do with my Michigan Sports Camps training facility. At half the time, I teach guys to be professional wrestlers, amateur wrestlers, or cage fighters. Well, yeah, but I think what I'm doing more than anything, I'm giving them a backbone, and I'm making a difference. I let them know that you can achieve something if you put the effort in. You move forward.
You mentioned that people compete for the best spouse. Just in case my wife is listening when this airs, I believe I won that competition in life. Um, just a transition. You
Well,
mentioned
that was probably a good thing for you to say, especially if she stand right there over your head.
yeah. You know, she'll listen to it
She might,
later.
otherwise she might choke you out here right now.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So you mentioned I'm gonna transition. I was gonna do it later, but I'll jump right into it. You mentioned professional wrestling. Obviously, you were a very successful professional wrestler. Tell us, how did you get into professional wrestling, and then also how did you hook up with the at that time the WWF?
Well, the transition was actually professional wrestling was my first profession. A lot of people don't know that.
Okay.
I'd been approached by some independent professional wrestling companies through the mid '80s, but had I turned pro at that time, I would have lost my amateur status, and my amateur wrestling status meant more to me than anything else. And so basically, as of the 1992 Olympics, a new rule came down from the United States Olympic Committee that allowed athletes to be both amateur and professional
Okay.
simultaneously, as long as you were not involved in a high school and or collegiate um, organization, because you'd still be governed by either NCAA rules or your high school athletic association rules. Well, I was well past my collegiate eligibility, so I can have my cake and eat it too. I could be a professional wrestler and still making a national team, Pan American team,
Okay.
world team, Olympic team. So that's, like I said, as of the '92 Olympics, I turned pro, and I first turned pro and with professional wrestling. And then by 1994, I jumped, the cage fight thing, I jumped into that and had a dual career.
Okay. So how did you get hooked up with the WWF?
Well, they just, basically, they called me. I
Uh
mean, that's WCW called me, and the ECW called me, and so did WWF. So like I said, all three companies, and again, the two biggest players really at that time were WCW and the WWF.
yeah. Yeah, it seemed like there was like this influx of MMA fighters. I know you and Ken Shamrock both went to WWF, and Tank Abbott spent a little time with the WCW. Um,
Yes.
Now you spent 2 years with the WWF, and you left. You've said that there was a difference in opinion or a storyline they wanted. Tell how that came along. Like, how did you decide it was time to leave the WWF?
Well, first off, two things. I had a 2-year limited contract. What that means is, the average wrestler was working on, I think it was 187 dates a year.
Wow.
That doesn't mean travel to or travel back from. So you're on the road quite a bit. I only gave them 60 dates, period. And I was non-exclusive, which means I could work for anybody. As far as I still
Really?
know, I have been the only non-exclusive wrestler ever on their roster.
Wow.
But I'm not the normal guy whatsoever. And well, I mean, first off, when you think about, I started a cage fighting career just before turning 37 years of age.
Yeah.
No one starts a cage fight career at 37.
Most retire
They
that.
retire.
Yeah.
I'm lifetime chemical free. You find another professional wrestler / cage fighter that can make that claim.
Yeah.
So you look at my age, you look at the fact that I'm chemical free, then you look at how much extra training did I do to jump into my very first cage fighting thing. I trained for 5 days, an hour and a half a day. It was a joke. Yeah, the same place I was doing my cage fighting preparation at the same place I was doing my professional wrestling training, because there were no cages around to be gotten into. You go, like, if you fast forward today, you can go to almost any community and find either a cage or a section of fence, and they're teaching you UFC style techniques.
Yep.
And back then, professional wrestling was the closest thing that could come to it. So I mean, like I said, I have defied odds on the way up, the same way as I have defied odds on the way in late life, on the downside of the hill. At 17 years of age,
Yeah.
I'm a senior in high school, and I'm trying out for the 1976 Olympic team.
Wow.
I'm men that I know their moves. I went to their camps, their clinics, and now I'm stepping out on the mat, and we're competing against each other. So it was great. just to do that experience. And like I said, just I don't know. I totally forgot the question you asked me because
So
I went off into
yeah,
a couple different
it's okay. It's okay.
tangents.
No, it's okay. I mean, I love hearing the story.
Maybe that's dementia kicking in. Who knows?
Yeah. No, I love hearing the stories. I mean, you hear these stories about you, these things I didn't know about you, and I feel like I knew a lot, and I tried to do some research to make sure I didn't sound like an idiot asking questions. My last question was about the WF is how did you decide to leave the WF?
Well, there was kind of what you were bringing up to before, and the right terminology would be creative differences.
Okay.
I came in as Dan Severn. I wasn't the Undertaker. I wasn't
A
a lot of
gimmick.
these guys, they have stage names
Yeah, you want a gimmick.
or what's known as the ring name,
Yeah.
and it's not by any means it's not their real name. Well, I came in as Dan Severn. I came in as Dan to be Severn.
Yeah.
And Jim Cornette was basically kind of like the mouthpiece that was attached to me, and he was so frustrated with the creative team because he goes, Dan, he come in there, he making colorful words, and he goes, Dan, he goes, this creative team doesn't have a clue what to do with you. He goes, and you are the greatest thing ever to hit professional wrestling. You're a professional wrestler who can wrestle.
Yeah.
He goes, the rest of these guys, all they can do is flex and cut promos. He
Yeah.
said the whole thing should be you coming out there, carry down a couple belts, me carrying a couple of belts, and you just throwing the belts on down, just going to just to dismantling people left and right. And this was during the time era before there was ever a Goldberg
Yeah.
in WCW. Matter of fact, even a number of years later, I finally did meet Goldberg in California with a few other businessmen, and we're all having lunch, stuff like this. We're kind of getting to know each other, and halfway through the lunch, Goldberg reached over and just nudges me on the shoulder with his hand and goes, thanks. And I'm like, for what? He goes, dude, he says, I was you. He said, I watched you in that cage. He goes, I did your antics. He says, when you raise your hand and do that crazy look and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He said, I was you. And I'm thinking, well, I laughed. So I said, thank you for the compliment. I said, you did me better than I did myself.
Yeah.
But that's what WWF, that's what Jim Cornette was pitching to the WWF at the time. And, instead, I got creative team coming back with, they went for you to put 666 across my forehead. Mark of the beast. You want to make me into an Undertaker disciple. And I'm thinking, I just put my hands up like a T and I make that little whistle noise. I'm like, hey, guys, time out. Not going to happen. I live in small town USA.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have any repercussions against my children, nor my businesses, nor myself. And I said, I'm the real deal. I go, I'm not in need of money that bad that I'm willing to sell my soul.
Yeah.
Or something like this.
Now, was it
And that was kind of
a
parting ways. It was a very, kind of a mutual agreement.
Okay.
Just kind of parted ways.
So you just pretty much didn't want to do the gimmick that they wanted to do. Now,
No. But at the same token, I was a gimmick. I was the real deal.
Yeah.
They just didn't know. They didn't know how to utilize me, or their creative team could not come up with something as simple as, well, maybe you should just go out there and just dismantle people and win.
Yeah. Well, the first was the angle was the guy who beat Ken Shamrock. That's when they first brought you in as a guy who could beat Shamrock, which you did. So let me ask you a question. Okay, good.
Well, the thing is, there was the rubber match never took place.
Yeah.
Ken has a victory over me, and I have a victory over Ken.
Yep.
So I kind of thought, well, this still is that WWF has actually contacted as well, that they know we're both professional wrestlers. They got this built-in rivalry between two people. They could always have the professional rubber match take place.
Yeah.
But it didn't. It never materialized.
No. So, what did you enjoy more? Do you enjoy mixed martial arts more? Did you enjoy doing professional wrestling more? Or?
I enjoy them both for what they are, and they both have helped to influence different aspects of each other as well. I wore the same outfit that I wore in the Ultimate Fighting Championships in professional wrestling.
Yep.
But professional wrestling, it's a physical entertainment product. To where Ironically, I've been hurt far worse in my professional wrestling career than I have been in all my cage fights combined.
Really?
Yes.
What
Well, the cage fight, all you got to do is you just got to walk out there and get end results. In a professional match, you're filling a window of time, so you might be out there for 10, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's give and take. Clothesline here, body slam there. Okay, a couple punches here, a couple European uppercuts. And people don't realize professional wrestlers are some of the most incredible athletes, doing some of the most incredible athletic maneuvers without the aid of a safety net.
Yeah,
They're
of course.
they're like they're a stunt person because the way that they're trained how to fall.
Yeah.
Repeatedly, over and over again. People realize taking chair shots and all that other stuff, your body is actually taking trauma. And over the course of, you're doing 187 matches, you're not giving your body to rest. You wonder why there's a high mortality rate in an industry like professional wrestling.
Yeah.
I always tell people I have outlived 4 of my cage fight opponents and almost 30 of my professional wrestling partners.
Wow.
And none of them are older than me, or I should say none of them were older than me.
Yeah.
It's called lifestyle choices.
So let's I mean, that's really sad to think about that organization.
What is?
That industry got affected by like that. Now let's transition over to what you're doing now. You've done everything in MMA. Now you're doing promoting. Tell us about this organization, the Danger Zone, and what you're doing with them.
Well, Danger Zone, I first started back in, I think probably right around that 95, 96 time period in the first place. And then and I get it all towards amateur because you had all these people just fighting over the pro level. And, the pro level at a certain point, I was doing no holds barred shows because that was the name of the game. And then it slowly transitioned into mixed martial arts.
Uh-huh.
And so I kept the company going, but my heart was really working with the amateurs because, pro wise, it had the unified rules.
Yeah.
And so there was a set of rules across the United States, across the world. But on the amateur level, it differed, and it still differs even to today. What these amateurs can do, depending on the state that you're in.
Uh-huh.
And I rekindled it for a couple of different reasons because it's kind of like, well, I think my MMA career might be to an end. I say it like that because there still is there might be still 1, maybe 2 matches, but then I do have a novelty item that I threw out to a company, and they're really thinking about it. I don't even want to talk about it right now, but if it does come out, it's a novelty. It'll all be real fights, but there's a novelty aspect to it all.
Okay.
So, but that I should know more than that in the next 5 or 6, 60, 90 days. But then I also have, so I have my own mixed martial arts company. I have my own professional wrestling company, POG, which stands for Price of Glory. Okay. And I restarted that up after a little over a 4-year hiatus as well. And the training facility, my training facility has been ongoing, but like the last 4 years, I've always shut it down during wintertime just because I just had too much going on. Well, now I kicked up my training facility. It's known as Michigan Sports Camps. It's located in Coldwater, Michigan.
Okay.
So you can find that on Facebook page, Michigan Sports Camps, or you find Price of Glory Wrestling, or you can find Danger Zone MMA. Again, that's pushing just the 3 elements of the Facebook pages of the different things that I do. But on top of that, I work with law enforcement. I work with corrections, air marshals, border patrol, military, and as far as I know, I'm still the very first civilian ever to be brought on base for the world's largest private security company known as VXL, located out of Montrose, Virginia. I understand physical mechanics. If there's a better widget to be made, I'm the guy that could probably make it when it comes to hand-to-hand combative. And my record is a testament to that, or the fact that to have started a career when I did, to have had the level of success that I did. When you recite those numbers are close, but they're probably off by, I'll say, 15 to 25 matches comfortably.
Okay.
Because when did Sherdog or Full Contact Fighter or
Yeah.
any of these other
Tapology.
watchdog
Yeah.
organizations even start to come into existence? It wasn't until 2, 3, 4 years after the fact, and they only monitored one company, and that was the UFC.
Yeah.
Now, when Knowles Bar broke, I had businessmen pressing business cards in my hand. Give me a call. We'll have an airplane, pick you up here and take you there, and we'll have a match and blah blah blah. So, there's probably, like I said, another 15 to 25 matches you could probably add to my credit.
Okay. All right. So, well, and we're gonna say they're all wins too. So, well, they say it's over
Uh,
100.
the, lo- the losses are etched into my mind. The victories, they're just a blur.
Yeah. So, we gotta chat. We appreciate all your time. We really appreciate what you did for the sport. Like I said, the first time I watched MMA, you were in the main event. So, I'm a huge fan. My last question to you, Dan, is: have you submitted to the takeover?
This is Dan the Beast Severn. The only Triple Crown champion in the UFC is no holds barred history. And I have not submitted to the MMA takeover because victory shall be mine.
We thank you, Dan. We wish you luck in everything you do. We welcome you to the MMA Takeover family. Ladies and gentlemen, that was another MMA Takeover special edition interview. We thank you for listening. To continue to receive the best MMA coverage around, head over to our website, themmmatakeover.com. That's themmmatakeover.com. You can also like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks again, Dan.
You're welcome.